Namaskar, Nilesh in another session of Shraddha and Prajna. This would be session or part number 47. And we are going to look at 2 or 3 specific issues, key points, key areas related to Indology research, related to dating of Mahabharata, related to establishing, understanding, comprehending, communicating the deep antiquity of Indian civilization. Let's begin with the first part, which is why India has itihasa. In fact, the appropriate question is why only India has itihasa? Because as a psychological driving force, any human being anywhere around the world wants to know about their past. Now, some people may understand the importance of it. Other people may just do it out of a habit. Doesn't matter. It's called, in English, we'll call it history for a simple translation. It's a crude translation. In fact, history is not itihasa. We'll talk about that some other time. But here I will use that as interchangeably because we are talking in English. Of course, the word itihasa should be used when it's appropriate. So why only India has itihasa? And I have already talked about it, so I'm not going to expand on that point. That's simply because the 3 amazing things that Indian civilization produced, maintained, cultivated, calibrated, and kept it fresh are right here. The first one is a very sophisticated, very able and capable language, Sanskrit, in a way, a synthesized language, which is based on very firm foundations, like something that you see in nature, hear in nature. And but again, I'm not expert and I'm not going to go into that, but there are many experts and you can listen to them. What's so beautiful about Sanskrit? Mm-hmm. The practical aspect that is relevant here in the context of why only India has itihasa. And of course, itihas includes history, but history is an extremely reductionist form of itihasa. That may be how it can be explained. Now, in order to have such itihas, you need a language to communicate, language to take the descriptions of any given time and put it in such a fashion that people in future can extract it without missing the meaning of it. So this language has very low to no drift, which is not to be seen anywhere else. For example, if you go to Europe, and I don't know about the French and German and what changes took place, but English, let's take English. If you pull a book that's say only 100 years old in English, or 200 years, and then go 300 and 400 and 500 and do the comparison, and you are going to be mighty surprised. You will not able to understand what you are reading in English. Now, I just took English as a language because I'm giving a lecture in English, and especially Indians, start feeling extremely snobby, when it comes to English. That's why I just mentioned it. This drift also you can see in other languages, even our Indian languages, many of the Prakrit languages like Marathi. For example, if you go back to 400 years, say Tukaram Adabanga, you understand for most part. Samartha Ramdas Swami also not that difficult to understand. 400 years. When I say not difficult to understand, many even Marathi speaking people may find this difficult right now. It depends on individuals' efforts as well. But I will tell you my experience, and I'm talking of my experience. If I go to Jnaneshwari, which is now 800 plus year old, then actually I struggle in the sense I understand directionally, but very frequently I have to go to the what do you call the footnotes, okay, and try to understand meaning of the words and so on. Amazing. And I will tell you, I have not studied officially Sanskrit ever. I don't know what the magic is. Without that, with whatever my knowledge of Marathi, and that's how actually I understand Sanskrit, okay, that's how it is. There is no kidding around it. I don't understand Sanskrit grammar. I don't understand Marathi grammar either. But if I read Sanskrit text, I will tell you Ramayana, Mahabharata, and therefore Bhagavad Gita, Kalidasa, or others, and many of the grantha that have been written in Sanskrit in, say, last 1,000 years. As a first reading, I understand a good percent, 60, 70, 80%, depending on the context and my background knowledge. Rigveda is a different ballgame. I'll not go there. And frankly, that is also true with the Upanishad. Some Upanishads are easier than others. In some cases, the language comes out extremely cryptic and you don't know, I mean, at least I don't know what they're talking. Same thing with the Brahmana Grantha and so on. Okay. Anyways, but Sanskrit, but that's not the issue of the drift in a language. I don't understand Rigveda because I don't understand those words. And my knowledge of Sanskrit is very poor. But Sanskrit as a language has done an amazing job of keeping the drift in the language to a very low. I'm not saying it's not there, okay? The second huge aspect is astronomy, phenomenal, precise, and extremely sophisticated astronomy, unparalleled anywhere in the world, okay? And the recognition that astronomy is time. So now Sanskrit tells us what happened, astronomy tells us when it happened. Together, they tell us where it happened. And in order, we need somebody to make use of these to document it for us, ancient Indian narratives. Thousands and thousands of them have been lost, burnt by very fanatic religious individuals. And still, whatever has survived is still amazing. This allows us to know in the context of civilization in Sanskriti, understand any aspect of it through Desha, Kala, Patra, or time, place, and circumstances. And that's how we know it. Now let's look at the application of it. So if a wisdom tradition has documented for us something of the past using a stable language as Sanskrit and using a sophisticated time machine, you can call it, as astronomy, guess what? And if we are lucky and if the evidence is necessary and sufficient, we can know a lot about our past, okay? Through our antakaran, through the mind and brain and tantra yukti and indriya pramanya, Vijnana Buddhi, Tantra Shastra, Tarka Shastra, and so on. Now, I gave a bit of a provocative title, The Heavy Observation and Scared Mahabharata Researchers. All you have to do is go back to, say, last 10 plus years, okay, since I demystified Arundhati Vasishtha observation. And you will see many Mahabharata researchers who used to talk about how they have done research work on Mahabharata have gone mute. Many others who just were clueless, kind of, maybe they said, oh yeah, this is an interesting area. And so now they have become vocal, which is all good. The people have gone mute for a reason. People have become vocal for a reason. Different behaviors you will see, but the common behavior for Mahabharata researchers, all existing Mahabharata researchers, I would say exceptions, none. Okay. By Mahabharata researchers, I mean Mahabharata dating researchers who has of his own or her a specific year claim for the year of Mahabharata War. They are scared. Why is that? The beauty is Arundhati Vasishtha observation. Now, is this the only observation in Mahabharata? No, there are 300 plus astronomy observations. So why this one observation scares them? Because in one quick swipe, this basically destroys their game. Now, I'm not saying that everyone played the game. Some of them were sincere in trying to find out. And when they did not succeed, they still wanted to put that half-baked effort, saying, hey, you know what? No, it didn't work out. They didn't say it in that language, but it appears like maybe it's around 1931 BC, like say Karandikar, for example. But what there was to this day, until AV observation, until 2009, there was no single piece of evidence, astronomy or otherwise, from the Mahabharata text, which could be tested in a scientific way to either place a very firm, decisive upper limit or a very firm and decisive lower limit on the timing of Mahabharata War. The beauty of Arundhati Vasishtha observation is, and I'm not going to talk of Arundhati Vasishtha observation. I have no need to, there is no need to talk of it right now. I will talk about it, of course. I can talk about it for 10 years, okay, without making it boring. But right now, others are extremely scared and they're talking about it. So, hey, let them talk, let them say what they want to say. That creates a situation where I can do a beautiful Purva and then we will look at the beauty and brilliance of Vyasadeva in coding the time of the Mahabharata war through precise and accurate astronomy observations such as Arundhati Vasishtha. But I don't want to emphasize that. I just want to show why this scare is. But with that, I also want to point out some myths. Okay. And I deliberately, and I will continue to do that, of course, because there is a point of view, or there is a TPOV, teachable point of view. And I'll come to that in a minute. But before I go there, okay, so I take this framework of Sanskrit as a stable language, astronomy as a accurate measurement of time, and the wisdom tradition who made use of both of these to encode, to write down the itihasa, our ancient events. Okay, now they wrote in many different ways. Puranas are a good example of that. But when it comes to precision and accuracy, like Arsha Kavya or itihasa, the itihasa text as Ramayana and Mahabharata that we have right now, there may be many others. We don't have them right now. And they just do an amazing job here. Now, in the context of Mahabharata, for example, okay, so where does that information comes to us? Like what is happening or what was happening from the Mahabharata Grantha itself, which is written in Sanskrit. Where do we get the astronomy indicators? Okay, nimitta, whatever you want to call it. That tells us when it happened. Okay, right in the Mahabharata Grantha. When you combine this, the descriptions, because there are place descriptions and also the timing, you get to know the place, the desha, and of course the time. And then Bhagwan Vyasadeva made use of this to write these 100,000 plus shlok long Mahabharata Grantha, and that also provides us the context, like what was happening. Most of you are familiar. If not, you have to go back and watch other episodes in this series, Shraddha and Pradnya, also Dr. No Shorts, and many others at my channel. But this doubt clearing machine, this is simplified 1,000 times, has, let's see, so 5, 6, and 7 elements, okay? You begin with a tough problem to solve that is not been solved by anybody else. It could be a small problem, it could be a big problem, but tough in the sense it's not been solved. Okay, so think of it in this fashion, and it's not been solved for a reason. Okay, all right. And what's the outcome? If you are successful in clearing the doubt, then you get a scientific and logical conclusion, solution. Your prameya becomes now siddhanta. Okay, so something that was a hunch, now it's an established thing. Okay, and that's the benefit. So in the middle, we have the triangle of explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory, prameya, in the context of background knowledge. So in the context of Mahabharata, what is the tough problem? When did the Mahabharata war happen? Now, there are many problems. We are choosing one problem here because to understand anything, you need the context of this time, place, circumstances. You need to know the context of time, you need to know the context of place, and you need to know the context. Okay, just the whole, what is it about, and what's the problem, and who are the players, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, you can take many problems related to Mahabharata. This one is, when did the Mahabharata war happen? Now, to solve this, Many people have tried many different things. In fact, one of the reasons why these folks are scared is really they could take advantage of the ignorance of common men. Okay, again, I'm not talking of all the Mahabharata researchers, but I'm talking of at least 90% of Mahabharata researchers, 90+% of Mahabharata researchers. Now, I do not know their motivation. So don't ask me the question, why did they do that? I mean, use your judgment. Okay. Sometimes the intentions were not devious. The reason could be they were trying, with their abilities. And hey, you know what? A priori, we don't know whether we are going to succeed or not. So, but many of them had no scientific background. So they don't even understand that they have to state the hetu, the Nyaya Darshana speak hetu, based on which they are looking at determining the date of Mahabharata War. Recent times, many contemporaries, they will just use an extremely haphazard, extremely idiotic way of doing this. Why? Why haphazard and idiotic? Because in most cases, for whatever reason, again, don't ask me, I don't know that, you have to ask them. They already have a priori some date in mind, and they want that date to be the year of Mahabharata War. So now what happens? Now they have to twist and torture all the evidence, assuming somebody forces them to use the evidence. Most would love not to use the evidence. In fact, Arundhati Vasishta observation is that story. With the exception of less than 5 folks, nobody in the last 400 years talked about Arundhati Vasishta observation in determining the year of Mahabharata War. They didn't want to talk about it because they couldn't explain it. Okay. And you will see this as a common theme. If they cannot explain it, now, of course, this can happen with available science and technology. We will not able to test everything. In which case, it's perfectly okay to say, well, this particular evidence is there in Mahabharata, but I don't know how to test it objectively with the science and technology at my disposal. When somebody asks and say, well, do you? I mean, please go ahead. You will be my hero if you can do it in an objective fashion. So it's one thing to say, hey, with the science and technology at our disposal, we cannot do it, versus simply not talk about it, because although there is a need for their theory to test it, they don't know how to test it, or they are not successful. But still, even when they're not successful, they want to just keep on pushing and still claim something. Why? Because they already have something a priori in their mind. Therefore, they don't bother about it. And you must have seen through my other lectures, like I keep on asking, what is the theory of these Mahabharata researchers? They have no answer. They will find digression, they will change the goalpost, they can do all kinds of chaos, but not answer this simple question. The simple question actually can be answered. It ought to be answered. Descriptions of Mahabharata War are descriptions of Mahabharata war times. This is my theory. And now, if we are looking at astronomy descriptions of Mahabharata War, then the statement will change, saying the astronomy descriptions are of Mahabharata war times. If the descriptions are of a river Saraswati, of the that comes in the Mahabharata War Parva, Mahabharata text, then the second part of the theory is that the Saraswati descriptions are of the Mahabharata war times. If you are seeing oceanography descriptions in Mahabharata, seismology descriptions in Mahabharata, genetics description in Mahabharata, genealogy descriptions in Mahabharata, physical anthropology descriptions in Mahabharata, geology descriptions in Mahabharata, vegetation, the type of weather, climatology, then you have to just use appropriate word in the second part of the theory. Then you have to actually go and look at the descriptions from the Mahabharata. And because we are trying to determine the Mahabharata war dating, you have to ensure that the description given is in the context of a Mahabharata war. Because Mahabharata war has many upakhyan. And those many upakhyan goes back into antiquity. They are not referring to the Mahabharata times. And we need to be very careful. If you are not, your knowledge of Sanskrit is actually not going to be a benefit, but is going to be actually a disaster for you. And I'll give you examples if I ever get time to show you that. So many people, they say, oh, but I don't know Sanskrit. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, so knowing Sanskrit is useful for 1,000 different reasons other than just knowing Mahabharata. But if you look at, not all, but some of the Sanskrit experts or so-called Sanskrit experts, and then what they have done when they read Mahabharata descriptions, you may actually consider yourself blessed that you don't know Sanskrit. Okay, but about that some other time. We have so many other things to do before we get to such trivial stuff, but we will get it there. Then, which objective testing method you use? Well, that depends on which particular type of the kind of, like the genre, for the evidence that you're using. Is it astronomy? Is it hydrology? Is it oceanography? That will decide what method to use, like, for the as appropriate. So if it's astronomy, it will be like astronomy calculations, astronomy simulations. If it is some old object that we are dating and there is a carbon component to that, organic component to that, then it is some kind of dating techniques, such as, I mean, with AMS type of techniques, it's some kind of isotope like a carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, whatnot, so that decides it. If it's a genealogy, it's a different type of method that you will use. Anyways, and depending on what it is, you will have to use some background. Here, I'm going to talk about specifically, say, astronomy. I'm not going to go into the detail of astronomy evidence. I have done hundreds of episodes on that, and you should watch them. But assuming it's astronomy, I'm just giving you as an example. Mahabharata manuscript will always come in picture because we're talking of Mahabharata. We're trying to decide about Mahabharata. Mahabharata is going to be the primary text. Just like if you're going to talk about Ramayana, Ramayana is going to be primary text. And not any Ramayana. If you're investigating something from, say, historical perspective or from the origin perspective, then it has to be Valmiki Ramayana. Now, that doesn't stop you from looking at the peripheral evidence, the evidence from other Ramayana, Puranas, whatnot. Yeah, absolutely. But when it comes to the veto power, it's very clear, which evidence is the primary evidence. So that's why Mahabharata manuscripts. It also gets into interesting discussion. So many Mahabharata manuscripts, there are Patha-Ved. And so how do we deal with them? Okay, so we are also going to look at, not today, into these, and I have done many videos how to look at the Patha-Ved, how to look at multiple manuscripts, and what treatment we use in deciding certain evidence, and what if for that same particular shlok there are many Patha-Veda, how do we decide between them? I have discussed this many times when I discuss Mahabharata evidence, so do watch other videos. But if it's astronomy, again, you also need to have a knowledge of Indian and modern astronomy. How much knowledge you need? This is, guys, true not just of astronomy, about any subject. And I'll repeat that. If you truly are interested in a particular subject and you're willing to give your tana, mana, dhana, total dedication, total hard efforts, you don't get distracted by anything else. You give 2 years of your life, you become the best in the world, if not the best, one of the best in the world, like top, like what you call 99 percentile. Okay, that's a fact. And that's not limited to any specific discipline. Okay, all right. And then, of course, you draw the conclusion and combine this. Therefore, there is an outcome and the establishment of that prameya if you are successful. But something else, successfully solving any tough problem. If you thought you are done and now let's go on a vacation, not so. I mean, you can still go on a vacation and celebrate, but when you make a revolution, a breakthrough, it leads to many new and newer problems of higher complexity and of higher excitement. Okay, and now either you may work on them or somebody else has to work on them. So that's when people have to also understand this. So many times when I will use this doubt clearing machine and show the conclusion, and immediately in the lectures or otherwise, people will say, now, but do you have evidence of that kind? I mean, but do you have evidence of that kind is a very stupid statement. Now, why I'm calling it stupid? Because they don't understand that statement arises, that question arises because this particular trial at using the doubt clearing machine was immensely successful. So we are buying into the outcome of this, and that is raising new questions. But many people, the way they assume, they understand, and therefore I'm calling this a stupid question, is that they say, unless you show me that evidence, this one I cannot accept. Now, that is pure stupidity. In fact, that question arose because of the immense success of this first round of whatever the problem you solved. So before even asking the question, that question is not even qualified, not even justified until you accept the success of whatever that problem that has been solved. Why? Because if you're not happy with this solution, then question any of this. And how do we question? And I'm going to show you a demonstration of that today, sort of as a Purva Paksha. So if when that is done, a particular thing, and again, I'm not taking any specific example, but it could be, say, Arundhati Vasishta example, like here, tough solve problem. Arundhati, Vyasadeva is saying Arundhati is ahead of Vasishta. Arundhati has put her husband Vasishta behind. I mean, there are 10 different ways of translating it. The beauty of this observation, and that's why it scares all other Mahabharata researchers, is no matter how much mad dance you do, how much dance you do, jump around here and there, the observation is so, that is the beauty of Sanskrit, is so stable that, people will argue, okay, well, I don't see the word walking. I think Vyasadeva is saying it is walking ahead, or it has gone ahead. Doesn't matter how much you play with the tense, doesn't matter how much you play with the words, like Vasishta Prushtata Kruta. So she has gone ahead of Vasishta. Oh, but how are you saying walking? I'm not saying, guys. These all other Sanskrit experts have translated this. I am just using the translation. If I don't use the translation, then also people complain. Hey, that person is saying walking, and why are you not using walking? And then when I use walking, they say, why are you saying walking? Which word is translated as walking? No, it says Arundhati Vasishta Prashtata Kruta. Arundhati has gone ahead. Now, this can be translated as she has put Vasishta behind. Now it says, where does this say Vasishta put behind? No, it's not said that. She said, the statement says she has gone ahead. Okay. Or sorry, rather actually Vasishta Prashtata Kruta, but that can be translated as she has gone ahead. It means the same thing. Or she is now ahead. Whichever way you look at it, my point is, it's such a stable language, such a powerful observation. Many times there can be room for interpretation. In this case, there is no room for interpretation. Of course, people continue their, what you call a jalpa, vitanda, hitva, bhasa, chala, jati, and that's why they're talking about it. And it's a good thing for Mahabharata research. But suppose now, so why Arundhati walked ahead of Vasishta, Arundhati is ahead of Vasishta. And then if you go to the Agama and understand Indian and modern astronomy, you say, what is Vyasadeva talking? If you understand the Indian and modern astronomy, you say, not only that Arundhati is not ahead of Vasishta, but I don't see even the possibility of it ever going ahead of Vasishta. And that's what many Mahabharata researchers in the last 100 plus years have said. He said, I don't understand this observation. Or someone like C.V. Vaidya, he says, well, this must be somebody, it must be interpolation, must have come afterwards and so on. But you know what? The observations has the beauty. Like sometime I will talk about the Balarama Tirthayatra and how a interpolation, how a Patha Veda and all that can happen. But there you can point out that it is a Patha Veda, it is an interpolation, because rest of the evidence simply throws that particular observation out. Says, hey, if you accept that observation, you have a disaster on your hand, because rest of the 300 plus observations do not match. That's not the case with Arundhati Vasishta observation. Okay, and we'll talk more about it. Okay, so that's that. Now, I want to talk about the myth of 130 plus claims. In fact, you would have heard this number. That's not my number. Okay, it was a work of one Sri Veda Vasa. He is no longer with us. He did a good summary, tried to make a good summary of all the past efforts. I don't know exactly when the book was published, possibly like 20, 25 plus 20 plus years ago sometime. And I'll show you the list from his book. But the reason, so you would have more than likely heard this very likely from me, that there are 130 plus claims. Okay. Many people, when they even present their claim, they don't want to talk of how many claims are out there. They just say, here is my claim, this is correct. Okay, there are actually 130 plus claims, at least as claimed by Veda Vasa in his book. Now, what I want to talk today is the myth of those 130 plus claims. Are they really claims? Number one, meaning anyone can wake up from a sleep and just blurt out a number. Okay, that is not to be considered a claim. And therefore, I'm saying it's a myth of 130 plus claims. Or just like you may be familiar with the movement that began in Hollywood, then went to Bollywood, but Bollywood guys don't seem to have much problem with it, it seems, or I'm not aware of it because I don't follow either of them. But the Me Too movement, okay? Now, in some ways it was sad, but some way it was funny. Like some people did not talk about it for a very long time, okay? Anyways, that's not the subject, but similar to that Me Too movement, you will find many of these 130 plus claims are not really independent claims. Actually, you can just tell just from reading it that the person has not done a damn thing in claiming a certain year as the year of Mahabharata War. And of course, there are a few others who have done it. But you see how big that number is, who have not done a damn thing in claiming certain year as the year of Mahabharata War. And actually, if you try to track it and do it, many cases you will not find any material how they arrived at that. And in some cases, when you do arrive, it can provide a wonderful laughing stock material. Okay, so let's look at the myth of 130 plus claims, but that will also tell you why all other existing Mahabharata dating researchers are scared when they hear Arundhati Vasishtha observation. The good news is they are talking about it. Okay, let's look at the myth of 130 plus claims. These are the pages. I am pulling it from the book by Veda Vasa, written about 20 plus years ago. I don't have here with me, I have the books. Actually, the Veda Vasa, that trust, it is, I think, in Bangalore area, but please forgive me if I don't say that right. They had invited me to give a lecture a few years ago. Wonderful folks, and they sent me the whole set of books written by Veda Vasa. Okay, now this Veda Vasa, not to be confused with Krishna Dvaipayana Vasa of 7,500 years ago. This Veda Vasa is very much in our times. Okay. By the way, don't confuse that Veda Vyasa with Vedavir Aryaji. Okay, so Vedavir Aryaji is another individual, so not to confuse that. So from the Veda Vyasaji's book, written 20 years ago or so, he made a list of all the different claims made by different individuals, and he also gives a source or date of publication. He does not give a source, but in his book you may be able to find it. There are a lot of typos. Okay, so I will mention some of them. A lot of typos, as a matter of fact. So let's begin. Some of the oldest date that he has recorded, oldest claim made by somebody, is by one Lele VR. Okay, that is Lele Shastri, Visaji Raghunath Lele. That the year mentioned has a typo. It should be 5228, not any different than given by Pense here. In fact, Pense is simply copying that date. He's not like saying he developed it, but he might have written another book in which he might have taken a date from Lele, and therefore to Veda Vyasji, it appeared as if like two individuals are making same year as two twice. That's not the case. I have no idea where Wheeler came to that 6,000 BC, but that is impressive. These are BCE, by the way. Okay. Then here is another typo for Dr. P.V. Vartak, 556167 BC. Dr. P.V. Vartak never said that, 5561 BC. So the person who typed the manuscript or something, there are lots of errors like that. Pense we already talked. Modak, he gave a very generic broad line, which like saying it appears like in the area of 5000 BC. And people who have reached this conclusion of Mahabharata war happening around 5000 BC, more than 7,000 years ago, is not that new. You will read a short reference to it, like many folks pointing to 5000 BC as a probable time for the Mahabharata war as early as 125 plus years ago. Okay, if you read Orion by Lokmanya Tilak, now Lokmanya Tilak himself went for some another tangential year, okay, which is decisively false. And I'll show that to you. I mentioned this because Lokmanya Tilak is like a Adya archaeoastronomer, not for India, for the whole world. Okay, likes of Lokmanya Tilak, I would say, not like the only one, but he's a famous one. But Visaji Raghunath Lele would be one, would be truly to be considered as a Adya archaeoastronomer, okay, the father of archaeoastronomy. Likes of Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit, very much same time, about 130, 150 years, around that time frame we are talking. Amazing stuff. Now think of it, the archaeoastronomy, the world is sleeping, guys, and if you don't tell them, they're not going, even if when you tell them, they will not accept it. That's how dogmatic folks are. The archaeoastronomy also began in India. How interesting. And not surprising though, right? If India is the one who has historical documentation through Sanskrit, and if India is one which developed sophisticated astronomy, not only that, understood astronomy's time and therefore made use of it in a very judicious fashion, not a surprise that the foundation of archaeoastronomy also comes from here. That was the intention. When Vyasadeva or Valmiki embedded these references, the intention was to decode, right? So it's like a code and decode, like a password protected while the transfer. And then again, you use the password on the other side. Like when we transfer big files with a password, the person knows the password, uses the same password and opens it. That was the idea. Exactly what Vyasadeva wrote. If you know how to open that, decode it, you know exactly when Mahabharata War happened. Ditto for Valmiki. Okay, something else I want to tell you. So then you come to 5,000, as I mentioned. Modak gave as a broad timeline. Okay. Yeah, so that's what it is. Now, then you notice 3,475 and 3,026.5, 3,201, 3,200, 3,185, 3,152. Guys, this is a carnival, okay? Like suddenly everyone, you're going to see so many people and all the fun with this. Now, some of the folks, I don't mean all of the folks, because I honestly don't know that, how Modak arrived at 5,000, even as a ballpark figure, or Wheeler arrived at 6,000. I never heard that before I read Veda Vasa's book. But I was aware of Lele Shastri or Dr. P.V. Vartak and even Modak as a generic number. But so based on those 3-4 studies and S.B. Dikshit's criticism of Lele Shastri, I could tell you that they, not Modak, but others, Lele Shastri, P.V. Vartak and S.B. Dikshit analyzing it, they were trying to analyze this in the context of Sayana Nirayana. I'm not going to go and explain what it is. If you want to know, you have to read my book, When Did the Mahabharata War Happen? But also books on astronomy, and also books by Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit, The History of Indian Astronomy, also books by Dr. P.V. Vartak. I have not found the original book of Lele Shastri. So, my understanding, my knowledge of Lele Shastri's claim is through a history of Indian astronomy of Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit. But the basis is their discussion is Sayan Nirayan. Even that's what Vartak also used. And therefore, the answer is correct, but the method is wrong. That's not to say the Sayan Nirayan is not correct. The Sayan Nirayan existed, but it is wrong. Again, you want to know why that is wrong, you have to read my When Did the Mahabharata War Happen? And the whole chapter on the work of Dr. P.V. Vartak. Okay, let's move forward. Now you have this 3,000 group here, Junta, but you thought that's it? No, guys, just look at the second part of the page. And this is not over. When we go to the next page, you're going to see this. Where does this obsession with this 3,000, approximately 3,000 BC comes from? It is obsession, and it is like a mad race. It's like a dopamine high, or I don't know what kind of high, but some kind of high. And it's almost like you don't know what is happening to these guys. I mean, are they really doing the research, or they are just blabbering? I will not go into the details, but notice the years and you will know for yourself. By the way, there are typos, so that makes it even worse. So let me show you what it could be. So here, 3148, very likely it is 3138 or 3140. Okay, 3140, 3139, 3139, 3139, 3139, 3139, 3139, 3139. Various people coming to 3139. Now, I don't know many of these, but Jagannath Rao N, I have read his work. Okay. I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I will encourage you to read that also and make your judgment. Again, a sincere effort on his part with like remember, he's making that effort in 1931. Okay. But the reaction, at least my reaction is, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It is that kind of extremely trite, mediocre, extremely superficial work. And I'm not picking up on Jagannath Raoji for some reason. I don't even know who that is, from 1931. But I happened to find at least his work and I could read that paper. Extremely trite, extremely superficial. Okay. And like, it says, okay, is that how the research is done? I mean, when I started this, it was what you call say, coming of age. The passage of, the transition passage, okay, so that's what the research is. I mean, how, what the thing. And I'm not talking of his this specific individual. Okay, we don't have to go as far back as 1931. There's a lot of fun right around us in our times. Lucky us. Okay. Then there's a Narayana-Shastri TS. Yeah, I have read that paper also. Okay, sometimes it's a work together, although the different names, and one person is just copying another and quoting another. Okay, so very much in the tradition of the Western Indologist. Okay, so one Indologist blabbers something and writes it in the book. The other Indologist simply quotes that person, but now it becomes an authoritative statement. That's the kind of game that is being played. And these folks, whether they played it knowingly or unconsciously, I don't know. But that's the kind of game they have played. But note down these specific years: 3140, 3140, 3139, 3139, just how many of them. Then the 3138 begins. Okay, now Veda Vasa found only their few people, but I have found many others who just blurt out 3138, 3138, 3138. Okay, in 3138 we have the famous name you will see is a Kota Venkatachalam. Okay, later on in his life he was a Shankaracharya. And he has written many books, and that was in 1950s. And for that time, what he has done is truly amazing, truly amazing. But as far as Mahabharata dating and many other things, decisively false, decisively wrong. But he created a foundation. The importance is, if you wouldn't have created it, we would be making those same mistakes, because somebody has to make the mistake for others to recognize that it is a mistake. And that's the great work, I would say, Kota Venkatachalamji did. Okay. Again, 1950s, guys, it was not very easy to do research. And if you look at Lokmanya Tilak, that's going even 50 years before that. So really admirable work. Now, I want you to understand this. I said about the Tilak and I said it's decisively false, but amazing work. He's like an Adya Archeo astronomer, or Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit, or Lele Shastri. I'm saying Lele Shastri date is decisively false. 5228 BC is decisively false, but amazing research. And Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit, I want people who are truly interested and want to get into deep into this, they should read History of Indian Astronomy by Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit and look at that criticism of Lele Shastri. That will give you a historical example of how to do a criticism, okay? How to do a criticism, healthy criticism. Of course, you can read my books, okay, to know that. Okay, so Kota Venkatachalamji, just because the name is known to many, I just also mentioned that. I have all his books, I have read them, and so on and so forth. Okay, I have most of his books, I should say, because maybe there is a book that I even don't know that he wrote. Okay, all right. But notice here, 3139, 3138, 3138, 3137, 3136, even 3135. Okay, I should have done that group as a separate group and not pull together everyone as that one whole thing. And I'll come to what I mean by Bhaskara's Kali Yuga in a minute. But frankly, from here, 3135, okay, all the way to 3140, very likely, they're into the same one bracket. And what are they doing? Well, before I explain that, let me give you the second one. Look at those dates, guys, after that. And not even a typo. Nice. 3102 BC, Acharya Gauri Shankar, whoever that is, in 1979, to all the way down. Let's see if we find any familiar name. Let's see. V.K. Rajwade. Okay, that's like Itihasa Acharya. So that's a good name. What did he say? 3102 BCE. Okay. Uh, and I can tell you that basically, I mean, he might have made effort, but he was not successful in using any evidence and objectively testing it. Because if he would have realized it's not 3102 BCE. Okay. Then let's see who we find. I don't know any of these names. Okay. All right. This particular area is good to understand why these names. So the people who are saying 3102 BCE are in reality, they're saying, Arey bhai, around 3000, around 3000 BC. That when the Kali Yuga, no? Kali Yuga happened. And there is this common traditional understanding, Kali Yuga, Mahabharata War happened during the Kali Yuga. Mahabharata War happened at the intersection of Dwapara and Kali Yuga, and Kali Yuga began in 3102 BC. Now, people assume that this information is there in Mahabharata. No, this has nothing to do with the Mahabharata. Absolutely nothing to do with the Mahabharata. This comes from outside. But people took that outside, meaning not outside India, outside Mahabharata. People took that information and very lazily assumed this. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can just discuss this forever. Now, what about those dates at the top? For that, now they went to Mahabharata. So this is how this thing Jugaad happens. So 3102 BC has nothing to do with the Mahabharata. It is not mentioned anywhere in Mahabharata, and you will not able to match anything. Any evidence, astronomy, non-astronomy, anything from Mahabharata, if you can objectively test it, it will never take you to 3000 BC. Never. 3000 BC plus minus 400 years. So how did you get there? Plus minus 1000 years, frankly. How did you get there? Well, they didn't do anything with Mahabharata. They just took that 3102 BC, tradition, Kali Yuga, this and that, and okay, around 3000 BC. So everyone who is saying here 3000 BC, they have not done anything, or if they have done something, they failed at everything, and they said, hey, I don't know, let's stick with 3102 BC. Consensus. Like there are professors here, who tell me, hey, this is to be done by consensus. There are some other folks who are under a very foolish notion that things are decided by peer review. No, nothing is decided by peer review. I don't know. Maybe they did not write papers, or they wrote papers and still this wisdom never came to them. Now, the top numbers that you see, they came from, now for that, selectively they went to Mahabharata text. They realized possibly that, when it comes to astronomy observations, they cannot make a head or tail out of it. Okay. Or look at them upside down and still it did not make sense. But they found one statement or from tradition that Krishna passed away 36 years after the Mahabharata War. But that statement by itself doesn't tell you anything. Then where does this 36 years comes? Yeah, it does come in Mahabharata. But to connect that with the Kali Yuga, you have to go somewhere else, like say Purana, and the Purana, somewhere there are statements. These are opinions. By the way, these are opinions of a itihasa folks. Okay. What is the word used? I'm trying to think of a word, but she's like the students of itihasa or the experts of itihasa. It is their opinion. That's how the word comes in a Purana. And what they said is, now just listen and understand the statement. When Krishna passed away, Kali Yuga began. So they take that one statement from there. Then they say, where did Kali Yuga begin? 3102 BC. That's what everyone knows in the Panchanga. Somewhere I'll do episode how or why that 3102 BC is used as a starting point for Panchanga. Or more than the why, because you can use any arbitrary point, just like the Gregorian calendar, I mean, that's why the joke is zero supposed to be when Jesus was born, right? But the joke is Jesus was born in 6 BC or 4 BC and so on. So nobody knows really. Something very similar. So it's not like how they figured it out, but there is a pure astronomy basis for 3102 BC, and we'll talk about that some other time. But that has nothing to do with a Kali Yuga, or that has nothing to do with the Mahabharata's Kali Yuga, when the Kali Yuga is referred to in the Mahabharata. But Purana or somewhere that confusion came, and they said when Krishna passed away, because nobody knows. So somebody said, well, maybe when Krishna passed away, Kali Yuga began. And that's why even the way Purana records the statement, it does it in an honest way. It says that is the opinion of Puravid, that is the word, okay, the knowers of ancient times. It's an opinion. But what happened is that 36 year is there in the Mahabharata text. So now what people did, combining that Krishna living, Krishna passing away and Kali Yuga beginning in 3102 BC, and only Mahabharata statement, Krishna passed away 36 years after the Mahabharata War. Now, from that 3102 BC plus 36, that gives you 3135, 3136, 3137, 3138, 3139, 3140. And some people will say, well, why so many numbers? Well, some people actually possibly struggle with arithmetic, the basic additions, I suppose. Some people didn't realize, they were not even sure whether is it a 3102 BC or 3000 BC. So 3000 BC, now they add, and what happens? You get 3136. So how do you get 3135? Because somebody is not sure. Is it the completion of 36 years or during the 36th year? 3135. You see what kind of trivial and very superficial research is this? Okay. And how about the 3139? Okay. Now 3101, then add 36, you get number 3137, 3102, then you add 36, you get 3138. And you say, well, hold on. Do I need to count 3101 or 3102? Or I have to basically keep that separate and then add 36? Okay. And is it like 36 complete and so on? I mean, guys, you think like, why am I wasting time? I'm not wasting time. I'm telling you the kind of superficial level of research that was done here. That's how you have this variation. So this whole line here is basically what? Hot air. Okay, but that's what it is. Now, quickly, the last one. Where does this Kali Yuga began? Okay, I'm going to give you the book at the end, the Jivan Rao's Yuganta. Bhaskara's Kali Yuga. Okay, Bhaskara is the person who took the Panchanga reference point and connected Panchanga, what we can call sheet anchor, just like for calibration, you know, like a reference point. That was a 3102 BC or somewhere there, 3000 BC, you can say, 3102, 3101. It was Bhaskara who connected that Panchanga reference starting point for calculation purposes. It was for calculation purposes. In order to understand what do I mean by calculation purposes, you have to read Indian astronomy, how the calculations are done. Okay, if you read Surya Siddhanta or Aryabhatiya, you start with the Kalpa. Okay, how many Kalpas have gone by, how many days of Brahma have gone by, what portion of Kalpa is over, what portion of Manvantara is over, what portion of Mahayuga is over, and why is that? This kind of very complex appearing calculations are done in order to get precise and accurate answers. Okay, that's why these big numbers are created, to avoid the fractions and therefore creation of errors. That's another subject. So, but Bhaskara is the first one around 6th century, 7th century, who connected that reference point of a Panchanga and said, well, it appears maybe that is a beginning of a Kali Yuga, and that has created all this chaos. Do read Jivan Rao's book, Yuganta. It is that important, guys, for understanding our history on a solid platform, the antiquity on a proper platform. Until then, it will feel like a mess. Okay, so that's on the Bhaskara's Kali Yuga. Now, why people are scared of Arundhati Vasishtha observation? Because the beauty is, hey, you want to dance here, dance as much as you like. And I'm going to show you a couple more pages of additional claims. Okay, coming to our times. Like I'll talk about that when I get there. I mean, there are folks who interpret Mahabharata evidence in such a way that they don't realize it because they only know Sanskrit or they don't know anything. The conclusion is that Mahabharata is happening in our times, or even sometime the conclusion is Mahabharata will happen 200 years from today. And you point it out, no, they have a very thick skin, which is a good thing sometimes, you know, nothing matters. It doesn't bother them. They say, you know what, I understand my grammar, Sanskrit grammar. That's what Sanskrit grammar says. It's not my business why Sanskrit grammar, my interpretation says 200 years from now. Well, it is your business because you are interpreting it wrong. You lose the context, you don't know the context, and that's why you are doing a wrong interpretation by being very dogmatic, pedantic in how you are interpreting it. Okay, we'll talk about that fun when the time permits. So Bhaskara's Kali Yuga, that is what created this chaos. Two more pages of this, and there are some other Aryan invasion nonsense will come into the picture. Then people's confusion, like not having a Vijnana Buddhi, like absence of evidence, treating that as the evidence of absence. Some person gets stuck in where is the iron, otherwise how the instruments will be made. And again, the confusion is the logical fallacies. They don't know what to make of it. Then some people are stuck in archaeology, and even a very poor, superficial archaeology. And as I said, over time, some people are just stuck with the grammar and how they translate it, and translate it wrong without the context, and make a chaos such as Mahabharata is happening in our times. Therefore, guys, I'm spending time. That's the kind of disasters we have. Now, therefore, the myth of 130 plus claims. Okay, as I said, these claims are wrong, but people can look at this. But everything that you're seeing around 3000, in fact, I have said this many times, and I would want somebody to come and challenge me. Nilesh, what do you mean? Here is I have a reference in Mahabharata text, and look, here I am testing it this way, and this is scientific, and this is how it is in the open public domain, and say that leads me to this year. 3000 BC plus minus 1000 years. It's an open challenge. There is not even a single reference, standalone reference, or even combining group together that can be objectively tested that will take you to any year 3000 BC or plus minus 1000 years on this side. In spite of that, just look at the amount of chaos that is being created here. And the same 3102 BC, so it is worth asking. So say one person calls it 3102 BC. I mean, we don't know these people. Say Radhesham Dwivedi, whoever that is. He says 3102 BC. Then Guru Dutta comes in 3102 BC. I mean, what methods did they use? How both of them arrived at the 3102 BC? I gave you the answer. They didn't do anything. They did not do a damn thing other than saying, hey, Mahabharata War happened at the time of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga begins 3102 BC. Everyone knows that is that bullshit of a consensus. Okay, everyone knows. Well, it is in the Panchanga. Don't confuse that Panchanga reference point with the Kali Yuga, which is due to Bhaskara. Bhaskara suggested maybe that's when the Kali Yuga began, and afterwards, nobody bothered until actually Jivan Rao. Okay, Jivan Rao's time. Anyways. Okay, and yeah, so all 3102 BC. So it's a question like, say, Rajwade, a great name, right? It will be interesting to hear what did Rajwade do that made him arrive at 3102 BC. My point is, we can talk about these people and some of the great works they have been done. Rajwade has done phenomenal work, like how to do a research, how to collect the documents. I have read the writings in original. But here, I mean, I have nothing against him. Why would I have against him? Everything for him. But 3102 BC, I think 3102 BC, no matter who did it, the question to ask is, how did you arrive at that? Other than saying, Kali Yuga, hey, everyone knows. No, everyone doesn't know, or what everyone knows can be wrong, or it is wrong. Now Jivan Rao has proved that. Okay, but I digressed. Why people are scared of Arundhati Vasishtha observation? Because look at how many people are there above that line. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now I don't know how it came. Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit have shown that the Lele Shastris doesn't make sense, but I have also tested Lele Shastris. Amazing work, by the way, and I'm saying it is wrong still. Pense is not doing independent work. Modak is just giving a generic range. And that's it. And actually, there may be a couple more that Veda Vasa did not write. But these guys were not doing it based on Arundhati Vasishtha observation, because it was not demystified until 2009. What is interesting is that once it was demystified, in one stroke, in one night, 8 May 2009, in one stroke, that one observation decisively, instantaneously falsified any date that occurs after 4508 BC. So therefore, I have drawn that red line. That is the Arundhati Vasishtha falsification limit. Anything falling after that, like 4508 BC, false. As simple as that, guys. Okay, let's go to the next page. So that 3102, what you can say, 3102 BC festival continues there. Then notice, as I said, 3101 BC, some person is not sure, do I take 3102 or 3101? So don't think, okay, so there are these 3101, and I think it's mentioned Dayananda Saraswati. I don't know if he mentioned Dayananda Saraswati of Arya Samaj. Whichever way it is, that's basically wrong. Again, he's using simply the beginning of Kali Yuga. And you see 3102 BC, 3101 BC, do not think like, oh, they did something fine tuning and one guy found 3101 and the other individual found 3102. No. Ditto for 3100. Now, one person says, well, okay, why just even bother saying 3102? Just say it's approximate anyways, 3100. So there you have now 3100, 3100. Then we get 3067. Okay. Some people are still clinging on to it, and I want them to cling on to it, because if you don't have a good example of how a disaster looks like and how a disaster is perpetuated, you will not appreciate 5561 BC. Okay, so the importance of 3067, just for example, that's not the only year. There are many other interesting years. And there are many staunch individuals who say that is the year of Mahabharata War. We did a seminar at Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, and the ministry, cultural ministry, asked me, hey, I mean, who we need to invite? And actually, I gave them a very long list. Maybe other people were not available. They did not, they couldn't possibly invite all others, but I gave everyone who is alive and have a claim for the year of Mahabharata War. What to speak? Even some folks who are clueless and do not have a claim for the year of Mahabharata War, even they showed up. And that's also a lot of fun, okay, because it gets documented. It's very important that it gets documented. Very important with modern technology. People's, it is there in the YouTube and stuff like that, so that people cannot run away from it and say, I never said it. They are on the camera, or they are in their books and documents and so on. So again, that 3101 BC that continues. Then 3067 was proposed by Srinivas Raghavan. Okay, so these other guys, it was proposed by K.S. Srinivas Raghavan. So the other folks who are also saying 3067, like Sheshagiri, I don't know who that is. Swami Sakhyananda also saying same thing. And more than likely, this 3066 is that confusion, because depending on how you measure it, was there a year zero between the CE and BC, or CE and BCE? That confusion also creates a change of one data point. That is also responsible for that 3101, 3102, 3138, 3139, 3137, and all that stuff. Okay. All right. But it was done by K.S. Raghavan. The book exists in archive.org. I would encourage everyone to download that book for 3067 by K.S. Raghavan and read it. Read it multiple times. Then only you will understand what a disaster it is. Otherwise, you will not understand it. And see, when I say it's a disaster, actually, I can praise Professor K.S. Raghavan. He was a one-man show fighting a recently converted Christian who was blaspheming Mahabharata. So he did a makeshift effort. And yeah, just like a child takes a clay and makes a Ganesh out of it. It may not be a perfect Ganesh-like artist, but we look at it and say, hey, kudos, nice job. In that sense, for his times, what he did is possibly, there was nobody else that he could contact. Actually, the situation is not any different even in our times. Frankly, if somebody says, okay, Nilesh, when it comes to Indian astronomy, who are the sensible people? Now, there are many people who understand Indian astronomy, but the variation is so wide. It's like a normal distribution curve with an extremely flat middle. It is that wide. Okay, so the variation is so bad, so wide, that you waste time when you think somebody is an astronomy expert. So really, I would say not more than 10 that I would count on. Okay, that's not to say there are not more than 10. There are at different level of expertise. But everyone has, like their, what you can say, their crutch. Like suddenly, at a drop of a hat, they will go to dogma. Okay, go to like what you say, karmatata or pakhanda. Suddenly that element will come in. It exists in all of us, me included, right? So we have to watch for that. Okay, so now after that 3067, so read that Srinivas Raghavan, and then of course Achar is basically, I have told that story before. Srinivas Kalyan Ramanji asked Achar to check if 3067 makes sense. Professor Achar, he passed away unfortunately a few years ago, a couple of years ago. If he would have done it a genuine job, he would have said this doesn't cut at all. But he almost thought like Srinivas Raghavanji, is not Raghavanji, Kalyan Ramanji is as if asking, ki, make this happen. I don't know what the conversation was. So poor Professor Achar went on spree to somehow justify it. And the disaster is for all of us to see. And now Dr. Manish Panditji is doing that. It's it's a wonderful thing. I don't want that 3067 claim to die at all. It should be always there as a wonderful illustration of a disastrous claim. Okay, there are many other disastrous claims now, where some of them have come after, so they are not there in the Veda Vasa's book. For example, 3162 BCE by Vedvir Aryaji, or 3009 BCE by, I forgot the first name, last name is Mendakiji. There is one researcher who in private communicates with me. He has arrived at 4500 BCE, and if he ever publishes, and I want him to publish, I mean, we have a very civil conversation going on in private about that. I mean, so if people maintain decency, so you can still have a disagreement, and actually through disagreement, vade jayate tattva bodho, you make progress. But you see something funny, and that's also, by the way, many people feel sad at it. I don't feel sad. I think, it's great that people come out with their true colors. They try to hide it, but at some point they feel frustration enough, like Arundhati Vasishta observation has done a great job to accomplish that. Let's go further. I don't know many of these people here. 3018, 3017, 3016. Okay. Then 3000, where this 3000 comes from? Again, that same thing, about 3000 BC. I don't know who these individuals are, where they have published it, but I can tell just from the claim itself that they have done nothing. Okay. Then Vaidya here, somebody, Sengupta. This is a work worth looking at. He has written a book. It's available at archive.org. RC Sengupta, or PC Sengupta rather. See, that's a typo. 2449 BC. It's decisively false, but definitely go and read it. Okay, one day I will do a review of that too. Then Kedwal is done something. Karandikar I was mentioning in some other videos. 19. This is not 931. This is 1931. Jasa Karandikar. Okay. Then I don't know name. Okay. All right. Let's go down here. 1500. Now let me put something. So that's again, that 3000 is a Bhaskara's Kali Yuga, and that's why this chaos is continuing. Then if you come down, again, I'm broadly classifying them. The 1500 and after BCE, by the way, this is, it's a lot of different things people have done, but I would say it's partly Aryan invasion induced. What that means is, those who accepted, they will say, well, Aryan invasion, not Aryan invasion, but even like the world beginning 4000 BC, the Western European assumption that existed until 1950. Kid you not. I have seen books published in 1950 still referring to 4004 BCE. And possibly in the religious structures, they might be even referring to it now. I don't know. But this one is like all kinds of things. Oh, iron was not there, and this and not there. And then, I mean, honestly, I don't know. Okay, I have seen some of them. Oh, Kavishwar. Okay, now see, this is another good example. I'll tell you. I didn't know that Kavishwar had come up with a specific year, 1447. Oh, that's decisively false and wrong. But Kavishwarji actually wrote a few books. And I'm just telling you guys, because this is how our research tradition is. You can have differences, but you can still have a respect if you know how to talk about the disagreements. So this particular Kavishwarji, he was and spelling is wrong. It's not C, it's a V Kavishwar. Okay, he was in Madhya Pradesh, and his son sent me all the books of Kavishwarji. Now, see, I try to understand. He didn't like dogmatically held on to like my dad has come up with something and Nilesh date is like removed by 4,000 years. So hell with this. No, he said, hey, Nilesh, I have listened to your videos. I have read your books, and my dad also worked on this. And here are his books. You may find these books useful. Okay. I mean, I'm in touch with him. Guess what? I do find these books useful. Because going back to now, Kavishwar is 1979 is saying, but yeah, so he's referring to that time. So that's what, 40 years. He published 40 years ago. And there are many things, interactions and so on that were happening, people making assumptions that I had no idea. I got to know from the books of Kavishwar, just like Kota Venkatachalamji's books and Lokmanya Tilak's books and Lele Shastri's criticism done by S.B. Dikshit and his book. I get to know more. Okay. So that's, you can have that healthy relationship. In fact, Srinivas Raghavan, I'll go back for a second. His grandson or somebody like that, he contacted me because he listened to my video or read my book or something. He said, hey, you mentioned referring to certain passages from Srinivas Raghavan's book. So do you have a book? I said, I only have it in a PDF from archive.org. And maybe he doesn't have access to archive.org. He asked me, can I send him? And I did send him. Okay. So this is not like a, you consider anybody an enemy or something, vade vade jayate tattva bodham. But when the jalpa vitanda hitva bhasa chala jati, that kind of stupidity enters, then you have to keep a distance from those folks. Right. So that's why we have the everyone giving us different types of advice, Ishwareta Dineshu, Balisheshu, Dishascha, okay, Prema Maitri, Krupopeksha. Or Patanjali will also say the same thing. Maitri Karuna Mudito Pekshanam, Sukha Dukha Punya Apunya Vishayanam, Bhavana Chitta Prasadanam. If you have to keep your mind balanced, then you have to deal with every individual in a different fashion. Some people do not understand the common sense language. Other people don't understand a pleasant language. Okay, they will do stupidity. Then you have to find a ways to deal with them. So back to this. So some of these various different possibilities. I'm trying to look for any other name that I find familiar other than Kavishwarji there. Okay, so if you continue here, let's see, 1400. Let me see some name. Pusalkar is one name. Again, how did he come up with that? No clue. Now, Tilak, 1400. It is not BC. It's a BG, Bal Gangadhar Tilak. And he proposed 1400. Again, based on what evidence? Zero evidence. Zero. Now, I'm telling you with such a great respect I have for Lokmanya Tilak. In fact, I have said to the Marathi-speaking folks and Marathi friends, I have said when I read his criticism written in Kesari, Marathi newspaper, 1905, 8 editorials analyzing, criticizing, critiquing, you can say, works of Bharatacharya C.V. Vaidya, when he had written a book, critical work of Ramayana, Mahabharata, and so on. And of course, his date is wrong. Tilak's date is wrong. C.V. Vaidya's date is wrong. I mean, C.V. Vaidya is stuck in 3102 BC. My point is, the way Lokmanya Tilak has beautifully written the criticism of C.V. Vaidya, even when Lokmanya Tilak himself is wrong. Beautiful criticism. I mean, I told one of my friend, I said, just for those 8 Agralek, if it is in my, my power, just for those 8 editorials, I would have given him Lokamanya. It is that beautiful, that simple language. I mean, worthy of imitation. I would admit I'm nowhere close to that. Nowhere close to that. So I have immense respect for Lokmanya Tilak, and I'm saying his claim is decisively false. Now, when you start understanding that, then you have grown. Okay, then you have grown out of the balya avastha, mental. Balya is not just a child, balya also means like a foolish or very immature. Okay, then you have become mature in your thinking. How can somebody praise that individual and still say that person's date is decisively false? Like there is no name here of Sri Kantalagiriji. Okay, I mean, amazing work on the linguistics front and the Rigveda analysis. And he also came up with 1400 BCE. Now, he wouldn't agree on Tilak on many things, but on the date, they came to the same date. And if you ask either of them, what's the evidence? Zero, zilch, nada, no evidence. I have tremendous respect for Srikant Talagiriji for the work what he has done. I don't know if people know, Dr. Shiva Shastri, my other good friend, myself, few other individuals, I'll not mention all the name, Raman and all. We have made efforts multiple years to nominate Srikant Talagiriji for a Padma Shri award. Okay, now whether he gets it or not, and I don't think he cares, but he's a very happy person on his own. But the point I'm saying is, even when I disagree with his absolute chronology for Veda, I think his work is on certain aspect or relative chronology, or even otherwise, the linguistic aspect is so amazing. He deserves it. I mean, he deserves why just Padma Shri, whatever the next within that is. And I actively made efforts, multiple years, by the way. Okay. And finally, now I have become so busy that I can't do everything. Okay. So, I mean, other people have to come up and do these kinds of things. By the way, with the award, that also happens. Many times people will say, Nilesh, you deserve this award, and please apply for that award. I find it laughing. I mean, why I should apply for certain award is beyond me. Okay, just beyond me. Sometimes I understand the person who wants to apply may need some information from me. Again, I think if person feels, Nilesh, you have done a great work and you should apply, or I would like to apply for on behalf of you. Yes, they should do it. But if they have to ask me, other than like some basic details, but ask me about my work itself, then I think they're only taking it on the blind shraddha that my work is great. Because if they truly understand it, they should be able to write about it. Exactly what I have done and why that is a aha. Okay, but let's continue. By the way, I can say that about Lokmanya Tilak. Why his work Orion is a aha, or Arctic Home in the Vedas is a aha work, or those 8 editorials in Kesari in 1905 are aha. I will able to talk about this. I'll able to give lectures on it. Okay, it's tremendously fascinating. Same thing with Srikant Talagiriji, for example. V.B. Ketkar, now he's dead 1262, but guess what? Let me just complete this here. That's also AIT induced. Then these are miscellaneous, many different things. V.B. Ketkar, again, 1262, decisively false. I don't know even how he arrived at that. But V.B. Ketkar was an amazing individual, a polymath, but also amazing astronomer. Just a quick thing worth mentioning. Before, now my details may not be exactly right on the money, but before Uranus, Neptune, Pluto were found or decisively confirmed, V.B. Ketkar, using Newton's theory and some additional corrections like Lagrange correction and so on, had already predicted these planets with their orbital period, which means in a way distance from the sun, and some other aspects of it, like what kind of mass they would have and stuff like that. Okay, so V.B. Ketkar had done that. Even he had predicted a 10th planet. Now, Pluto, we are already into the thing of Pluto is a planet or not. Guys, sometimes, these astronomy folks also will create something for just to create some fake enthusiasm. It's not, you don't need to debate whether Pluto is a planet or not. If you have accepted a planet, just damn it, keep it. If it's not, if it wouldn't have found it, then we wouldn't have included. I'll not go into the detail because that will be a digression anyways, and still it won't take you anywhere. But V.B. Ketkar had actually predicted a 10th planet. Some other time I will talk about it with his original notes. I would need to extract them from my good friend, okay, who is in India. But I'll show his original notes and what that possibly the 10th planet he had predicted refers to. How fascinating that would be. Amazing astronomer. Okay. Anyways, let's go further. I'm trying to see if any name, Velandi Iyer I know, but again, a disaster, 1194. Some other fellow took his date and started claiming as his own date. That has also happened somewhere here. Let me show you. Yeah, here, there we go. Then 1190. Oh yeah, no, see, Daftari. Now, Daftari, Veda Vasa has assigned 1275. That's not correct. Daftari has claimed 1197-98. And guess what? Now see how many other people are also claiming it, 1197, 1197. And in a very recent time, Dr. Dieter Koch from Switzerland, he simply started claiming as if he has come up with 1197, 98. Now, Again, I would say, I don't know, Marathi we say hasava ka radava, like whether to laugh or cry, because they are borrowing or sort of stealing or taking a date from somebody without acknowledging the original contributor. But with enthusiasm and a pride, they are saying it is their date, which is decisively false. And I don't know what kind of intellect does that. And I'm not just referring to Dr. Dieter Koch. That's true for many of these people who are just saying, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. That's what is happening, guys, here. Okay, when you say 1000, 1000, now I don't know how Sri Aurobindo came up with 1190. I don't know how he arrived at it. I can tell you it is decisively false. The reason I'm saying this is I have an immense respect for Arbindoji. I mean, I have his books, very fascinating. I mean, just, like read any book is fascinating. Sometimes I don't understand some aspects of it, but usually a lucid language and beautiful, simple writing. You just get goosebumps in your head, that kind of thing. But I can tell with that great respect, 1190 decisively false. I have given lecture to Arvindo Ashram or whatever that organization is. 1190 BC decisively false. Okay. Yeah, then let's look at the 1000. Now, this is the area of an archaeologist. Because I'm saying it archaeologist, it could be other 10 different reasons, but because I see the name great Professor B.B. Lal, who passed away recently. Now, I have Professor B.B. Lal's books. He has done amazing job, especially archaeology area, archaeology evidence in the Kalibanga area and so on, and showing how the agriculture is consistent for 5,000 plus years and so on, same pattern, in showing the motifs that found in the Indus Valley civilization, connecting them with the verses of Rigveda. Now, many people foolishly, Professor Bibilal never said that, but many people foolishly understand this or misunderstand, whichever we want to understand it, because the motifs of Rigveda descriptions are there in IVC. These idiots start thinking IVC is a Rigvedic times. I mean, that's the level of naivety that exists there. But again, Professor B.B. Lal, I mean, amazing work. Again, his work related to Aryan invasion, because one time he was believing in Aryan invasion theory. As he looked at more evidence, he turned the table. He said, no, that's not true. It takes a courage, guys. That was shown by Professor B.B. Lal. Again, he was very instrumental in showing the archaeology evidence related to Ram Mandir. Well, when it comes to Mahabharata dating, decisively false. And I have discussed this in other lectures, why it is decisively false. Not to exclude the foreigners, non-Indians. See here, Parijitar or Parijitar. When not many people were doing this, he actually looked at the genealogies, okay, and tried to arrive at something. So you could even write here genealogy also. Decisively false, but the amount of effort and tapasya he did is admirable. You should take his book. Again, book is available on archive.org and read the book multiple times. You are still going to get many insights. 950, decisively false. Okay. All right. So that's it. Okay. Now, that's it actually. And so here, in our times, if you want to understand Mahabharata, the Mahabharata Prasthanatrayi are these three books. Okay, when did the Mahabharata War happen? Bhishma Nirvan and Yuganta from Subbu Publications. Make this as a New Year resolution. Consider reading them. Read with the family together. Okay, especially my first book, I will say, When Did the Mahabharata War Happen? That recently one aeronautical engineer engineering professor here said, he of an Indian background, but didn't necessarily grow up or born in India. And because of his attachment to India, he has started learning Sanskrit. In that context, he recently read that Raj Popar's thesis, and then he wrote a note to me. We had a quick conversation. He doesn't want his name to be disclosed, so I will not disclose it until he retires. But the point is, he's a relatively, I should say, a very famous professor. But he said, Nilesh, now in that comparison, Raj Popat, and I don't even like the comparison, but anyway, he said, if that's what the Cambridge standard says, then just for the sheer amount of new innovations and new insights that you have brought in, this book is equivalent to 50 to 70 to 100 PhD thesis by the Cambridge Indology PhD standard. That's what he said. And I'm not claiming that, guys, because I don't understand what Raj Popat is exactly trying to say there. I'm trying to understand it myself. So I'm not commenting on that, but I'm giving a comment of someone who understands Sanskrit grammars, and who has read my book and so on. All right. I think that's where we are going to stop. So namaskar, and I will see you in another session in the near future. Namaskar.